Report of Mississippi Trial 1955. Take it away, Brittany.
With plot. In Emmett's murder. In the book, it said that Uncle Moses said that Mila and Brent had shoved past Moses and dragged Emmett Till out of the bedroom. Then they were hitting him, and that they asked the woman in the car if this was the boy. Next to the woman was another man. Then they put the boy in the car and drove away. But what really happened is Moses had brought Mila and Brent to the bedroom Emmett was in. They asked Emmett if he were the boy that did the talking and money. Emmett said yes. They told Emmett to get dressed, and they walked out of the house with Emmett and told him to lay down in the back of the truck. There was another man or woman with them. But in the book, when Moses' wife was begging them to leave Emmett alone, she would give them money for the trouble. That part was true. In the book, it said that the boy had bruises, cuts, his head was beaten up, he had been shot, and a wild old pulley around his neck. That was true. It said that Emmett was scared. That was partly true, but Emmett was also tough. And in the book, they said that Emmett was scared and he was hollering. But what really happened was that Emmett wasn't really scared and he wasn't hollering. But their plan was to scare the boy, but he wouldn't budge. So they decided they wanted to make an example of him, and they killed him. White Citizens Council. In the book, the White Citizens Council was talking about board versus Board of Education. That was true. I think the author represented them in the right way. RC beating up Emmett by the river. I don't think this happened because in the book it said that RC never existed. I think the author put this in to represent how the white people in the South treated the black. Part 3. Third person. I don't think there was a third person because when Brian and Miriam confessed their story of how they killed Emmett Till, they never mentioned a third person. Hiram and Hiram's dad relationship. Hiram and Hiram's dad didn't exist. Hiram and his dad's relation at the beginning, they were distant and didn't agree on things and grew apart. Then Hiram realized what his father was talking about, realized there was more like that he was more like his father and was right, and in the end they grew close. Hiram and Naomi's relationship. Hiram and Naomi didn't exist. I think the relationship is supposed to represent even white men and were mean to white women and how some are caring. The trial. It's true that they had all white man jurors. It's true that the judge was Judge Curtis M. Swango. Prosecution team, Gerald Chatham, Robert B. Smith III, and James Hamilton Caldwell, and then Jr. Defense team, Jesse Josiah Breland, C. Sidney Carlton, Robert Harvey Henderson, Joseph W. Calum, and John W. Whitten. It's true in the book that they had Emmett's mother, Chester Miller, Willie Reed, and Moses Wright go up on the prosecution stand, but they left out Mary Amanda Bradley, John Ed Conthren, Robert Hodges, Benjamin L. Mims, Charles Nelson, and Ad Reed, George Smith, and C.A. Strickland. And Sheriff Smith wasn't on the witness list. It's true that in the book that they had Caroline Bryan go up on the defense witness stand, but they left out Lee Russell Allison, L.W. Boyce, Grover Duke, Pete McGill, Harry D. Malone, Janita Milam, Luther B. Atkins, Harold Perry James Sanders, Franklin Smith, and Henry Clarence Strider. It's true that Emmett Till grabbed Caroline Bryant's hand. Emmett said, "How about a date, baby?" Emmett put his hand around her waist and said, "What's the matter, baby? Can't you take him?" And then they left. Before he left, he whistled at her. And that's what happened in the trial.
Mississippi Trial 1955 is in Greenwood, Mississippi 1955, during the time when black people weren't accepted like the white people were in the South. Black people that came to the South were tortured, beaten, or chased back to the North. Back then, people didn't have the same kind of technology we do today. They still had cars, but the cars didn't work as well as the cars we use today. The stores back then also sold items for a much cheaper price, such as candy or soda.
At first, Hiram was very excited to be visiting his favorite grandfather in Greenwood, Mississippi. Things were going great until he meets Emmett Till. Emmett Till was a 14-year-old African-American from Chicago who visits relatives for the summer in Greenwood. Hiram and Emmett become friends. The tragic accident happens to Emmett. He was kidnapped and murdered for whistling at a white woman in Bryant's meat and grocery store. A few nights later, R.C., an old friend of Hiram's, pays him a visit to tell him about Emmett whistling at the white woman in public, how he ought to taught him a lesson. Hiram worried.
Reactions for the murder were especially hard on his mother, having her only boy killed. She insisted that a boy would be seen by everyone so they could see what they did to her son. The Bryant brothers were considered not guilty. Since then, we have never been able to find that mystery third person. Now we'll see what Diamond needs to say.
Trial 1955, fiction or nonfiction. RC is fiction, Naomi is fiction, Grandfather is fiction, Hiram Hilburn is fiction, RC's Fight with Emmett by the Riverside is fiction, Ruth Ann's fiction, Emmett, and then this is the nonfiction. Emmett being from Chicago is nonfiction. Emmett being found in the river after his death is nonfiction. And it's nonfiction that multiple men were involved in the murder.